So the topic I wanted to explore a little tonight with you is the most basic word, happiness. Happiness, being happy. And what that means for us in terms of our practice. The reason I raise it up is because when we look at the qualities that an enlightened person has, on a list of paramitas, for instance, when we talk about someone who's the 6 paramitas of being generous and patient, and having a moral life, and having discipline and energy and meditation and wisdom. Those 6 qualities, happiness is in there. And when we talk about the Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes, they're called divine temples, which are these unsurpassable qualities that the Buddha specifically teaches of loving kindness and compassion, and sympathetic joy, equanimity. What is happiness? Isn't happiness something that we hope to realize and to inhabit or just experience as part of our the fruits of our practice? Shouldn't that be the fruit of a practice? Now it is in there in a sense, sort of relationally, when we say sympathetic joy. And sympathetic joy, we could say, well, but for me to be happy, you have to be happy first. You want to say something? No. If you want to say something, please don't hesitate. It's a small group, so we shouldn't feel any fear of public speaking. And yet, there are certain times when I found in the text, especially, there's a quote from the Buddha where he said, happiness is in the mind, which is released from worldly bondage. This is in Dhammapada. The happiness of sensual lust and the happiness of heavenly bliss are not equal to a 16th part of the happiness of craving's end, of desire's end. So there's a sense there that happiness is the result, the natural state when you are free of attachment, clinging, desire. The Four Noble Truths is saying there's suffering, there's difficulty, there's the end of suffering. Meaning suffering is caused by attachment. When you stop that attachment, then you have nirvana, freedom, nibbana. Then that putting out the fire of the greed, the hatred, and the delusion, the attachment, the aversion, and the confusion, putting out those 3 fires, or those 3 poisons, the Buddha says in itself, that's what the happy mind is. Now, in our culture and from our upbringing approach, we are taught to believe that happiness is more than that. There's something extra. There's like a real bonus. There's like a gift that you get. And it's a separate sort of feeling of being happy. And the thing that in most of our experiences we may recognize is that happens, but the inherent nature of that, as he said, there is happiness. The Buddha just said, there is happiness in sensual desire and in heavenly bliss. We can just translate that into our own things. There's happiness in pleasure, and there's happiness in whatever else we get sort of a kick or bliss out of. But it doesn't compare, he's saying. It's not saying it's an illusion. It's there. You feel happy, but it doesn't compare to the happy of total release. The release of the burden of all the, suffering we carry. It's not so hard to understand that, actually, in our own experience, because when you do experience happiness from achieving something, very soon you experience the nature of that happiness, which is its impermanence, its transient. So when you do have something identifiable as, yeah, I'm happy, and I'm happy because, when your happiness is because, when it is related to a cause, the nature of all causes is changed. That cause will change and it'll end, and then you'll no longer have the cause of that happiness, and it'll go. Which may, if you were depending on that for your happiness, may leave you even lower than before. Whereas, when we're talking about the happy state of mind, right, that great happiness that comes from the release, from the freedom, from nirvana. And nirvana is from the word nibbana, which means extinguishing. Nirvana is not, don't think that it's like this happy place, this happy state. It is the putting out of the fires. And when there's that relief, then it's not dependent on anything, because it was the release of something that was blocking that natural state of mind. It's not that you're adding to that state of mind. Like, I hope I can get something out of this experience, and I'll build enough experiences that maybe it'll last. One of the things that they've done research on is there's what's called a pleasure habituation. Pleasure habituation. Habituation is getting used to something, right? And whatever your pleasure is, whether it's, the new house, a new car, a new job, a new relationship, or the next level of work, or the next level of status, within a short amount of time, your state of mind habituates to that, gets used to it, and you're dealing with the same upset that you had before you had that, promotion or change of status. Right? So we habituate to the new state, which leaves us just meeting ourselves again, because we didn't root out those root problems, which are the three fires. So, what is it like not to have that? What is the state of mind when you have relief? Well, think about it. You don't have to think about it in terms of total nibbana, but think about having any pain or suffering in your life. Whether it's just, the discomfort of really needing to pee, or being sick, or having a broken leg, or having surgery, or having a real hard time with somebody, or having something that you're really worrying about. And then you get the good news, you don't need to worry about that. Think of that relief. The abandonment of that inner tension or stress. Physical, mental, emotional. When that is released, you come back to a natural state of mind which is balanced, at ease. Dogen says Zazen is the Dharma gate of great ease and joy. And at first it seems, odd. I've spoken about this many times. But it's that ease of being able to just release a certain burden that we get so used to carrying, we don't even notice that we're carrying it. I think of it sometimes as the background white noise that we're always hearing. Let's say you have a house and there's a loud refrigerator, or there's a lot of traffic outside the door or something, and you stop hearing it. But then, when it stops, you suddenly realize, wow, you have like an inner relaxation, a release. Because there's a letting go of something. It's not that you added something, but you returned to a natural state of ease and even joy. The other day I was in a lesson, a language lesson, not that I was teaching, but one that I was learning it. And the alarm it was in the bus station. Although in the upper floors of the bus station, they actually remodeled it into these really fancy offices. It's amazing, going in a different world. And I was in this office, and the alarms went off, or something. And it was a loud, high-pitched noise, like really loud. And we thought, okay, let's go to another room. But it was the whole building, without any source. You couldn't see where it was from. It really felt like the universality of dukkha. You can't. It's hard to find exactly where it comes from, but it's everywhere, and you can't escape it. There was no escape in the washroom, anywhere. It was all there. So we said, okay, let's just keep trying to have the lesson. And the teacher is talking, trying to teach. We're trying to listen and like learn, and ignore the fact that this is just increasingly driving me crazy, right? Literally. And then at some point, and then they were trying to figure out how to stop it, and calling anybody or everybody. The person responsible for building was in spot for some reason. It was not, and we're getting desperate. And we thought, okay, I'm just going to have to accept it. This is what is. But accepting that state of suffering is like, this is what is, means that you're always going to have this inner stress. And that's the kind of suffering that we're talking about, is the background or foreground noise, that there's this sort of inner stress that you can't get used to. It's like, okay, this is life. And then it went off. Release. It was just a release. Like, now I know what quiet is. Now I know what peace is. And then I started worrying about something else. That moment passes too, right? Because I'm dealing with my mind again. But for a moment, the release is just pure ease and joy. The ease and joy of being in a present moment. That it's not that I'm getting something, that I've just released, I've let go of the pain. That letting go of the pain invites you back to a natural harmony of just being alive and here without needing anything else. So yeah, we can say, well, actually we need to be pain-free. And that's true. That's the point of aspiring to end suffering and end dukkha. Yeah, that is an aspiration. Right? But the aspiration is one of letting go, not one of gaining. So the Buddhist path is the path of letting go, of the causes of suffering, which is very opposite of ordinary or worldly path, is saying that instead of letting go of suffering, I will overcome it by, gaining more goods. That's the gaining approach. So there was a young woman who gave a talk in one of my classes just before when I came here. I have a class that goes until 7:30, and that's why I'm usually late. Although we were all late. You weren't late. Some of us were late bringing the pillows. So the disadvantage of this place is there's nowhere to store our things, so we're going to have to each time bring things over. We'll try to arrange it so it works in some way for next week. So she was giving her talk on her brother. And her brother has cerebral palsy, CP.
What?
Her brother has a neurological disorder called cerebral palsy. And it means that he doesn't have very much motor function, body function. Although his mind is relatively okay, but he's trapped in a body that doesn't really work and has to have everyone do everything for him. She's 23 and he's 22, they're like a year apart, and she spent her whole life sort of taking care of him. And her talk was about how much he inspires her. She said that she goes home to feed him and it takes an hour. And all he does is eat some liquid. And that takes an hour. She said whenever she's feeling upset and depressed about her life, she just sits in the same room as him. And it evaporates. We wonder about our happiness, what's going to make us happy. And so she was kind of giving a Dharma talk, and she told the class, appreciate your lives. Appreciate that you can get up, that you can learn, that you can eat and drink. I appreciate that. We usually, our needs are usually much more than that, what we think our needs are. But those are our wants. And when we start to recognize the wants for what they are, it means you can indulge them. Don't mistake them for needs. And when you see that difference, that's what monkhood is about. It's about letting go, abandoning, and being ownerless, so that you strip away all the so-called needs and you see them as wants. And you reduce yourself to the very basic needs. And then you say, I'm taken care of. I have what I need to pursue the path. Everything else is extra. And we, in a worldly life, have to maintain some monk mind to be able to, in an inner way, abandon the wants and then go back to them. If you can abandon your wants and see them as like extra, then perhaps we can come back to them, return to them. This is, the old saying of, before I practiced, I saw that mountains were mountains and rivers were rivers, and after practicing, I saw that mountains were not mountains and rivers were not rivers, and then after, close to awakening, I saw that mountains were mountains and rivers were rivers. It means that, when we first are in this life, we see everything as form. We have to let go of it and see it as emptiness. And then only when you see the emptiness of it, you can come back to it as form. But that full circle is necessary. If you just see the form, we're going to be trapped in desires and wants. If we just see the emptiness, we're going to be rejecting the tools that we need to work in this world and help. And if we don't bring it back, then we're going to be not skillful. So what she said reminded me of Dogen's advice. In Dogen's really wonderful essay called Instructions for the Cook that we've looked at throughout the years, there's a section at the end where he talks about the 3 types of mind of the cook. But the cook is really, everybody. Because in a monastery, everybody gets to work in the kitchen. And you probably work in the kitchen too, so you can just consider yourself a monastic cook. Everybody's a tenzo. And he talks about what he says is the joyful mind, the parental and nurturing mind, and the great or magnanimous mind, the great mind, the vast mind. So joyful mind. So there's joy there. There is nurturing, parental mind. There's the compassion and love and care. There's the joy. And then there's the big mind. We can see those in the Brahma Viharas, where there is the parental mind is the loving kindness and compassion. The sympathetic joy, allows our joy to flourish with others. And the equanimity is the vastness that sees things in perspective, in the right perspective. So that's what Dogen is expressing, and I wanted to read it for you, the joyful part, joyful mind. Because what this young woman said in my class, it really echoed very well what Dogen said, which I'd like to share. When we train in any of the activities of our practice, we should do so with a joyful heart, a motherly heart, and a vast heart. A joyful heart rejoices and recognizes meaning. You should consider that were you to be born in the realm of shining beings, like heavenly beings, meaning if you're rich and powerful, if you're a god, if you're a hero, if you had everything you need, and you would be absorbed in indulgence with all that in that realm, so that you would not arouse the recognition of finding the way, and so you wouldn't have any opportunity to practice. And so how could you use cooking as an offering to the three jewels? Not only do we have the fortune of being born as human beings, but also being born able to cook meals to be offered to the three jewels. We should rejoice and be grateful for this. Let's translate this into our practice. In the traditional Buddhist traditional understanding, there are 6 realms of existence. There are 3 upper realms and 3 lower realms. And the upper realms are like the humans and the gods, and then the super gods, humans, heroes, and gods, and or divine beings and gods. And he's saying, like, if we're born human, and if you're born more than human, meaning if you had more than what you have now, right, all the material things that people look up to, it would be hard for you to arouse and awaken the desire to practice. Yeah. Our difficulties are necessary for our motivation. That is the truth of dukkha. Dukkha isn't just there. Dukkha is there for a reason, right? It's the reason to motivate us to end dukkha. We transform dukkha into the energy of practice. Without that, if we just had a lot of privilege, it would be hard to awaken those qualities and that aspiration. So he's saying that's the source of rejoicing. Your status, your position in life, with all of its challenges, you should rejoice that you have the challenges you need. They're unique to you. That's your path. Otherwise, we might be very lost. And he says, and also we should rejoice that we're human so we can cook. And the cooking here is making a meal of your life. When Dogen talks about cooking in the later part of this essay, in the first half, 2/3 of it, he's talking about the actual work of the Tenzo in the monastery. The Tenzo is the head cook. How important it is for every grain of rice is so important that you should care for it like it's your own eyes, like it's the pupil of your eye, he says. Wow, imagine seeing a grain of rice like that, the pupil of my eye. It's a wonderful image. But in the later part, when he gets to this area, he's talking about cooking as all the activities of your life, all the ways that we offer our work to others. Because the cooking in the monastery of the Tenzo is a way that the Tenzo offers his service to others. That's his practice. So when Dogen says we should really appreciate the fact that we can cook. I was thinking about this girl feeding her brother, and that's the act of a Bodhisattva Tenzo. So I'm saying I'm not getting anything out of this. There's nothing for me in this, except that this is a perfect practice. This is the practice of dana. Dana is giving. It is pure altruism to give. And that's what he means by cooking. We should rejoice in the fact that we will find, if we look, and that's the key, is to look, we will find many opportunities to cook well, meaning to give perfectly, altruistically, just for the sake of offering to the 3 treasures. When we sing Buddha Dhamma Sangha, when we give to the 3 treasures, we're giving for the sake of all beings being awakened. We're giving for the sake of realizing the truth in reality. And we're giving for the sake of creating this vast community of humans living in harmony. It's Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So when we're offering to the 3 jewels, you don't need to think, I'm going to give flowers to the statue. You're feeding your brother, or you're just being kind to your neighbor. whatever way you cook and offer your meal. Your meal is your life. You're cooking it all the time with the energy of your practice. There's a slow burner going on, and you're offering it all the time. We should rejoice at that fact, that we have endless opportunities to cook and serve. It's really remarkable. And this is what he wants to remind us here. And if we do reflect on that, what Dogen suggests is that is a source of joy. Source of joy isn't that we got something. The source of joy is that we have something to give. That is the source of joy. He also goes on to say, we should also reflect on how our lives would be were we to have been born in the realm of hell beings, hungry ghosts, animals, or jealous gods. How difficult our lives would be. If we had been born in any of those conditions, we would not be able to practice together with the strength of a community, even should it occur to us to aspire to it, let alone be able to offer food to the three treasures with our own hands. Okay? So he goes on on this, and really we don't need to think that we would, if we were a criminal or an animal or something like that, but if we just had some sort of real difficulty that would make sitting, make learning, make coming together in community really hard. Make traveling to a center, make even just getting up in the morning, that would make dressing ourselves really difficult. Yeah? It would be really hard to find the aspiration to then serve others and to become awakened if it was really hard just to even take care of our own state. And now that we are relatively, functioning, we should see this state in our present opportunity as a cause for rejoicing. A few years ago, when I was talking to teachers around North America as part of a research I was doing, I wanted to meet Philip Kapleau. Philip Kapleau, he wrote this seminal book, the first real book on Zen practice, called The Three Pillars of Zen. Around 1961 he was written. So he was an old man, and he ran the Rochester, New York, Rochester Zen Center. His teacher was Yasutani Roshi, a very strict Zen Japanese master. And Philip Kapleau, he went to Japan during the war, during the invasion, and he was there after the war ended. And instead of being part of the occupying American army, he went to some Zen monasteries in 1945 and sought out teachers and stayed there for about 15 years until he came back with the practice and with the teachers, and he started teaching. And then in around, I reached out to that center, it must have been 2003 to 2002. And the attendant said to me, well, you can come, visit him. He died about a year later. But he has Alzheimer's and he won't be able to answer any questions. And I felt bad not going, but I kind of felt like, it was a long way, it was a long drive, and I needed to interview teachers I could ask questions to. I would have liked to see the center and I would like to go there, but I passed up on the interview. And that he died a year or two later. He was one of the founding fathers and mothers of American Buddhism. But even your life of practice, even when you are devoted to a life of practice, and you have lived your whole life in practice, old age will come without mercy. It will do what it does, and it will treat everyone differently. And we don't have any choice in the matter. We can live really healthily now, But however we will be affected will not be our choice. And you probably will have wished for something else. So while we have this opportunity, we should take time each day to reflect that it's rare, it's passing, it's temporary, and it's the only one I have. So take the small pains you have, and even though they sometimes seem large, you're alive, you're sane, you come to practice, you are receptive to the way, and you have aroused a certain aspiration. That is cause for rejoicing, and it should motivate you. Let your difficulties push you onward. Your difficulties are your path. They are not in the way. It's a basic Dharma truth. And that is called the First Noble Truth of dukkha, of suffering. First Noble Truth is that dukkha is going to be your path for the rest of your life. And by constantly lightening the load, you will feel the great ease that Dogen says is available now. There's the old poem that I often recite from the koan, "Ordinary mind is the way." In the spring, hundreds of flowers. In the summer, the cool breeze. In the autumn, falling leaves. In the winter, snow. If your mind is not disturbed by unnecessary things, this is the happiest time of your life. So I want to bring this back for just a final moment to integrate this approach into our zazen, into our meditation, which is the mindful approach of moment by moment, noticing, is this necessary or is this unnecessary? Mindfulness is being able to have that discriminating wisdom to know when my mind is, involved with something beneficial and necessary to this moment, or when it's just caught in old patterns that are really a waste of this precious opportunity. So take your joy seriously. This is the only moment we have. And don't waste it on unnecessary things. Because those things that are unnecessary, the delusion of those three fires, attachment, aversion, delusion, the delusion is that we think unnecessary things are necessary for our happiness. But when we see the truth that they're unnecessary, then our true nature, being naturally at ease and joyful, arises. So moment by moment, just notice, where is my mind, where is my body, what's happening? Is this thought, speech, action necessary? Or is it unnecessary? Is it beneficial to myself and others? Is it unbeneficial? Does it increase freedom, ease, and joy? Or does it increase attachment and self-centeredness? Moment by moment, we just have a joyful practice of allowing our minds to settle and be more free from those unnecessary distractions. So before we finish, would anyone like to add a thought.
I just thought when you say that you achieve something that you want, I always think about win championship, and I watch the teams so happy, and it's like if someone of the champion will achieve a championship, and in this moment he will think, I won only one and I want 3 champions. He won't be that happy. So it's like not for a while it's not wanting. They experience not wanting.
Mm-hmm.
And then you raise something else that you want, but this happiness, and they are always so happy, is because they're not, the happiness you can see like they're not happy for achieving, but happy that now we don't want for a while, nothing.
Yeah. Suzuki Roshi says that non-attachment doesn't mean you don't have things, but it's accepting that whatever you have is going to go away.
שאלה בעברית. זה נראה שאנחנו חיים את החיים שלנו במין מחזוריות של יום ולילה ועונות השנה ונשימה ועיכול ומחזור אדם, ומחזוריות נמצאת בכל מקום. ובמדיטציה, בבודהיזם, היא נמצאת בנשימה שאנחנו צופים בה כל הזמן. אבל אין איזשהו שיח על הדבר הזה של החזרה הזאת שעוזרת לנו לחוות גם איזושהי יציבות ביום יום. נכון, תמיד מרגישים את זה שהכל חולף והכל לא דומה למה שהיה לפני רגע. אבל פסיכולוגית זה נראה כאילו זה עיקרון שאנחנו זקוקים לו. אז איך אתה רואה את זה בתוך האדם?
Well, there are cycles. For instance, I'm thinking of even just the calendar, the year, the month, and the week. There are cycles of our of time that we sort of celebrate in some way. Even in the Buddhist world, there's the awakening day, there's the full moon day, there's each week. So there are things that happen, right? In terms of coming back and around through a cycle, especially the lunar cycle, where every month there's a certain ceremony and things like that. And I think it's a cycle to come back, to know that you're coming back to the same time, but it's more like a spiral. You're like at a certain different place. You've come around, you see you've come around, but it's never exactly the same place, right? So we age, it comes around. But yeah, I'm no longer what I was last year, but here's my birthday again, and it's a way of seeing, sort of measuring not only the sameness but the change. So it's not just that it all changes so I can't measure it, but I do think that there are the cycles, especially yearly and monthly ones, where it's there for us to notice impermanence, but also to notice how our practice is coming along after that amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to notice those cycles because it gives us an ability to perhaps reflect, okay, where am I now in comparison to where I was, say, a month or a year ago, right? If we think of a cycle that way. So in Dharma practice, it's not necessarily, other than more traditional Buddhist places that do that, like monasteries that are marking those cycles in the Buddha kind of life cycles. But I think with ourselves, you can understand your life in a cycle that is sort of spiral-like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're repeating certain times, but each time you go around, it's like a different place. So I think it's a pretty natural way of experiencing time. Look at the cycle. It's whatever you want to, I think, focus on in terms of your cycle. There's the moment-by-moment breath cycle. There's the daily cycle. You get up and what do you do the first thing? You go to bed and how's your day been?
Mm-hmm.
There's a cycle of the day as well, and you can notice that. So I think the more kind of intention and focus you put on it, the more it becomes part of your way of looking at your practice. So that the day isn't just a day that happens, but the day is like a cycle of time that gives me certain ways of measuring. Is that kind of what you were thinking about?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the form of the time in Mandarin dimension.
There's no circle here though. Like nothing is repeated.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Nothing is repeated, but it goes around. So time is that odd thing. It's a very odd thing. Look, the earth is going around. We can say that. But because we're aging, that strange quality that is really hard to define. Just because the earth is going around the sun and turning, for some reason, it means then we're aging, right? So there's time.
Mm.
There are days, and then you extend to months and years, and that causes us to decline or grow. So that there's change just because of that physical thing happening. Like, why does that physical thing cause us to grow or decline? Why don't we remain the same, just keep going around?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a real answer to that. It's honestly the weirdest thing. You think, okay, just keep going around. There's this physical law of gravity and the orbit of the Earth, and so, but why does that make me age? Huh? But it does, which means that there's a cycle and change.
Mm-hmm.
And the year is so precise, that orbit is so unchanging that it's going to be 365 days for millions of years. It's going to be exactly the same. It's not slowing down or speeding up. So you have something that is so identical, and yet we're different each time it goes around. So you have the cycle and the change, and we're just going to have to somehow use it well, so that each time we go around, it does give us an opportunity to perhaps pause and reflect. Okay, it's been a year, and it's been a year of change. So I've gone around, but how am I different? Maybe not a year, maybe a month, maybe a week. But whatever the cycle is, because it's always there, you can choose it to mark it in terms of your practice. And I think it's very useful. Otherwise, yeah, it's true, we may just keep going and say, yeah, everything changes and where am I on all this? No, there's ways to measure.
Personally, I'm like really sold on the idea of like dukkha, not because of my circumstances, more maybe because of my attachments or like whatever. And you gave the example of a level of stress that's kind of like white noise in the background that is kind of manageable, or like that you could get used to. And sometimes, I don't know, maybe in inner conversation with imaginary people or something, wonder, like, do everybody need to like do something about dukkha?
Or
Like
can we just get used to the stress?
Is the dharma for everybody? Are some people just naturally okay, or like the three poisons are they're like kind of naturally less inclined to be poisoned by them, or is it just for the messed up ones?
Yeah, I think the problem is the people in the West who come to Buddhism are just are pretty more aware of dukkha because they're more aware of their problems. So it seems like their problems are worse, but that's perhaps just the self-awareness. So you get a more like self-aware group that comes to Dharma, but because dukkha is universal. And some people have less severe experiences of it. But that noise is all there. And someone may get through their life and fine. But you see, that doesn't necessarily make for an enlightened life. It may make for a manageable getting through life, and I'm happy with what I have. Like that's okay. But that's called settling. Like that's settling for, I'm okay. But the nature of the mind, which is much vaster and more profoundly generous than that, means that we have not tapped that real potential. So it's not just about, can I deal okay with this amount of suffering and get through life and I'll be okay, and but we're also shortchanging ourselves on the vast potential of the mind that can be realized. And that greatness is something that the Dharma and the practice can open up. It's not just saying, okay, I'll be able to deal with this white noise. Right? But being able to release that noise allows us insight into the depth of the mind. Right? Without that, we're just always going to be hitting a barrier that, it's enough for me just to get through the day. Like, it's hard enough to get through the day. I don't have much energy for more than that. What you notice is when you can let go of the stress, dukkha as stress, then you have more energy to really open up to the heart and mind that is naturally bigger. Without that, it's like getting through, a pretty loud urban environment. It's like, just get me to where I need to go and get me there safely. And that's all I ask, right? But there's more to the mind than that. And this is, what teachings of enlightenment are about. Enlightenment is about something more than just I can deal okay with the stress. But I'm really open and connected to all others in all life and non-sentient life in the deepest way. I've seen through the illusion of self. That takes a lot of practice. We can get to dealing with dukkha on a survival basis, but our aspirations should be vast and total. We're traveling this path and going far. So, and far into your mind, that's what I mean. Okay, so we went a bit extra because we started late. Hopefully next week we'll start on closer to our normal time, depending on our logistics. But yes, so thank you, and we will end with the Bodhisattva Great Vows. I'm dedicating this evening to the benefit of all others.